Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Pixels and Ink, the official podcast of CGMagazine, where we take a critical eye to gaming, comics, tech, and media. I'm your host, Chris DeHoog, and I'm joined this week by our editor in chief, Brendan Fry.
Hello there, Chris. It's been a while. Good to see you back and me back.
That's been a
Yeah,
little. My sunburn's gone, and
oh,
and Jordan Biardi.
What up? I'm
How's
back,
everybody
baby.
doing this week?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to be back in the studio doing things. I know it's been a little bit sparse because we've all been traveling, but it feels good to be back.
Yeah,
Busy,
good to be
busy.
back in the country.
Yeah, there's also that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't blame you there.
Cool, laid back energy this
Deep.
week. It's good.
You
We're just
stopped to take a
chill.
sip like right as soon as we
Is it like
finished
when
talking.
it's like
I was waiting for Chris to like say something.
Yeah, it was a real. I love these awkward silences. They really do help the experience.
See, this is why
comfortable
we
silence?
can't. We
We can
need we
call it.
need Dana to. Dana's the one who constantly fills the dead air.
She does.
Let's.
We're all just too chill together. We're all just like laid back jazz cast.
Yeah.
I feel like she might object to the phrasing of that, but anyways, um, anyways, yeah. So let's dive into some of the more recent news. Namely, once again, we were talking about E3, and this time it's a post mortem. Seems like E3 has been canceled for this year.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah,
Remember when I wrote
I
an
mean,
article? Like, was it last year that I wrote an article about
I
how
think you did.
E
E3 should die.
E3 needs to just die already?
you've been dancing
I
on this
definitely.
grave for a while. Let's be honest.
Listen, I take no joy in E3's death, but at least not from like a conceptual standpoint, because like we're all old enough to remember like when E3 was like the height of like the gaming year, like I
Okay.
have like a lot of memories of like being really excited for E3 and catching it like glimpses of it on like electric playground on television,
Oh
like
yeah, look at
Wow,
playground.
that's
going to the
not just
local
that.
library and grabbing like oh sorry Chris.
I was just saying that's a name I haven't heard in 15
Yeah.
It still exists.
Reviews on the
Victor
run
Lucas
with
still
Victor
does
Lucas
stuff.
and Tommy Tallarico.
I mean, Victor Lucas still does stuff.
Yeah, he does. I mean,
Tommy
Tommy
Tallarico is
Tallarico's hard at work making the Amico a thing.
no, he's left that.
No,
I
that's
mean,
not happening
yeah,
anymore.
he's definitely left that.
That actually died.
It
He
definitely
ran
died.
away from that.
And I feel it got pushed into the ground, then he walked away, kind of pretending it didn't
Yeah,
exist. But that's
quietly playing his guitar.
yeah.
Sadly.
I, to be fair, I kind of wanted that thing to be a real thing, but it wasn't.
No, I mean, yeah. Again, like it's one of those things that like conceptually, I think it had its heart was in the right place, but
I don't
no
even
one
think
was
that's
ever gonna.
true.
Well, you could kind of see when he announced it, this idea of like wanting to make like a dedicated couch co-op kind of console for the family. It's like I like the idea of that.
I think the wording of that is one thing. The actual thing they presented was like, what if a weird
Yeah.
Android console didn't work very well? Yeah, we
What
got
if
you. I
we had an Atari 2600, but in the modern time?
don't think anyone wants that. Like literally anyone.
No,
I know I have an
people don't
Atari
want to.
VCS sitting in the back room that no one
Yeah,
is
people
using.
don't want Ataris like well, I mean, even then.
People probably want that like Atari 50 game, and that's just the Atari games without the crappy paddles.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
Yeah, but
it
the
was a
paddles are
neat
the part of
concept.
fun.
But anyways, that's off topic. Back
Yeah.
to
There we go.
Anyway,
Into
we
the
got a
weeds
weird,
already. Yeah, there we go.
anyway,
Cut out there. I'm not sure if
yeah,
that's
he
just me.
is just frozen. I love this face he's going on right now.
It's E3's ghost. Ooh,
Yeah, he is like we have like no signal from him at all.
this is this is threatening.
Amazing. Yeah, we're just gonna hide him on stream for a second.
That's unpleasant.
Let's
It's like a Simpsons.
so let's
Yeah,
just talk about that until Jordan is Jordan. No, Jordan's still frozen. Yeah, he just left. Okay, so we're gonna just keep talking until he's back.
that's for the best.
Yeah, I feel so. So yeah, so this was the first year that you were kind of thinking that it might be a thing you could personally do, right, Chris?
Yeah, I was in had my press pass just
Mm.
looking at logistics and stuff like that, but that's not happening now.
Yeah. I know we in the office were trying to figure out how we could like because Summer Games Fest is around the same time, and we are trying to figure out like what we could be in town for, what we could see.
Try to get some
Uh,
overlap going on. Yeah,
yeah. Then we also were looking at like the Ubisoft announced their press conference that would be taking place. Oh, was it a day after or day before E3? Then we're like, okay, that's making E3 more like skeptical. What's going on there? And then a few days after that, the full on hammer dropped, and it all kind of just got shown to be canceled this year.
it's funny you mentioned like Summer Games Fest too, because like that's the thing that kind of kills me about the whole arrangement is that
Mhm.
like, hey, it's still basically happening. It's just called Jeff Keighley's not E3 show. Like
Yeah.
Jeff Keighley's thing is essentially E3. It's just not E3 E3.
I think it's a more subdued, less budget intensive E3. Like it is, like you can read our article that we covered last year. It is very much a these are the games, no frills. There's some like coffee over there, have fun type thing. It's not a there's a giant spectacle and a giant like robot running around. It is a much more this is for journalists covering stuff. There'll be a show that shows it all like on a screen, whatever, but it's not a spectacle.
It's like the spirit of E3 lives on, minus all the hype that it thought it needed to have to exist.
Exactly. And I think, to be
Yeah.
honest, I think that's how the industry has to move. I don't think it needs to, like, CES exists for spectacle. That exists. It's dumb, but whatever. Companies can spend millions of dollars on stupidness. E3 it got less and less sense when you had these massive booths with very little happening in them beyond just having a giant, like, statue of Sonic or things like
The
that.
giant
They,
Fortnite castle
yeah,
from
so
one
Fortnite
year.
bust for some reason. Like, it had gotten to a point of excess and companies be like, wait, we have this giant budget we don't need to waste on games now. E3, that's cool. We can spend it on other things. Also, you have more people working like with streamers and the games industry working remotely more. It has become a very different beast. So having a show that is pure excess um, doesn't make as much sense.
No, and especially too, like I'm not sure if it was brought up because my internet just decided to drop out for half a minute.
It definitely did.
uh,
We noticed.
uh, like just the like the way that a lot of that pretty much all the big like the big three and even other AAA developers have just been moving to doing like little digital showcases on YouTube, once
Yeah.
every couple of months. Like there really is no need for it now. Like when the ubiquity of sharing information quickly
Yeah.
and succinctly is like so out there now. Like
Mhm. I 100% agree. I think as me and Chris were saying, the need for it is kind of not there. Companies are now trying to do it themselves or working streaming or whatever.
mhm.
The drive to say, yeah, we're going to spend like $3 million on a booth that's going to be used once just has less reason. Especially because E3 was
And
designed. Yeah, continue. I don't want to interrupt you.
oh, sorry, no, I was gonna say it's kind of like I said in my article, like it's the kind of thing where like with all that like that excess, you know, or despite that, like I don't think any one of us wanted E3 to go away completely, but like it needed to adapt to like it's
Yeah.
still E3 still could have existed as this big sort of like digital not even like an event in it like the way that they tried to do it and it was a mess,
Mhm.
just like like this like almost like an idea, like this is the E3 week and everyone kind of like lines up their presentations for showing on YouTube or whatever, like within this week, right? Like
I mean, to fair, that it's kind of what has happened. Jeff
mhm.
Keighley at Summer Games Fest, that is just basically taken over what E3 was.
Yeah.
It might not have the show floor where you have just like it's not gamer Christmas with like nonsense going on, but it is the same spirit of what E3 was.
Mhm.
Um, I think the show floor didn't really make sense as a thing just to show to journalists because, yeah, it looks cool on video, but why did you have a giant castle? Like, what point did that serve other than being kind of cool? I guess
It's just neat. But
Yeah.
and like what I think very easily what could replace the function of that, like again too, is like within that week, say, like as sort of like divisive as the idea is, just upload timed demos. Like you want to put like, okay, like, you know, you want to show off, here's the new Resident Evil, and rather than have like a haunted house and then the opportunity to wait in line for an hour to play the game, put the demo online for like a week and then take it down when it's like when the event is over. Like that way you actually just get to experience it as it's happening.
I mean,
like even timing those like Nintendo Directs and State of Plays and stuff like that, broadcast them that week. Like you guys don't have to pull out of E3 entirely. You can play ball a little bit and just broadcast these things you were going to broadcast in June anyways.
I think there's also the fact that you have like Gamescom is shortly thereafter, so they will be working in these demos anyway. So Jordan, you're right. They could release like an E3 build, which is just the Gamescom demo they're going to be showing off to the public for like you get like an hour experience with it or something like that. Like they could do things like that. I mean, it would be up to the platform holders to make it so it's not super expensive, because I know that Sony and Microsoft and all those ones do charge to have those different things on the service, but it's got to be cheaper than putting a thing at E3.
Well, and that's what I mean too. Even if you make it time, right, that way you're not paying like in perpetuity to have a demo on the service. You just pay for a week's time slot, and then that's it. Like it's done. And then once you're ready to put like an actual like preview demo or the full game out, put it out.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's not rocket science, guys. Come on, we're moving to an all digital age.
It's just failure to adapt on E3's part, right? Like it's
100%. I think that's a lot of what it is. It's I mean, also the fact if each one of these demos is like 20 gigs and there's like 300 demos, that becomes untenable for people. Like, okay, I'm going to be sitting here for 5 weeks downloading the thing I'm going to have to read.
I guess that's true, especially with America's internet.
So I mean, like there are limitations on what you could do with that, but there are like some tempo, like they did it with Resident Evil. There are ways you can make it work.
Yeah. I know we're being a bit facetious because again too, no demo is going to be 20 gigs worth of space. You're looking at like a 2 gig file.
Jordan, there definitely have been. There've definitely been 20.
Well, I can't think of one demo that was that big.
The Resident Evil one was pretty big.
I don't remember it being that big. I remember downloading that thing like in an hour.
I don't. I'm sorry. Well,
file size check ahoy.
Yeah, I'd actually have to look. I do not know, and I do not want to do it because you will notice me looking on things.
To the internet.
But
yeah, I mean, it's got to be more than 20 gigs for the Resident Evil demo, I think. But
it was pretty big.
Myself, but... Anyway, that's beside the point.
Maybe I find that hard to believe just because I've downloaded like I think it was Ghostwire that I downloaded that was like 21 gigs.
No, Ghostwire's like 70, 80 gigs.
No. Unless it was lying to me and it was just doing that, like, you can play the first 5 minutes and it's only a 20 gig file. I don't have to go on my PS5 that I definitely have now.
Yeah.
Did I mention, guys, that I got a PS5 finally?
Chris, can we just get you to turn it up?
Yeah.
The demo was 26 gigs.
Okay, well, you know what? Slap me in the face with a frying pan and call me an omelet.
Cool. I'm just...
I got egg on my face. That seems crazy to me.
I mean, the full game's like 60.
So
I'm still trying to unpack that metaphor there.
It's a thing. Moving on.
When you have egg on your face. When you have egg on your face because you messed something up, you say, smack me in the face with a frying pan, call me an omelet.
All right, Fraser.
I mean that's...
You know what? That's the highest compliment you've ever given me.
It's not.
You call me Fraser. That's a high compliment.
All over my face. What is the boy to do?
Great show. Where's that revival?
I hate myself. It's coming.
Happening.
It's happening.
Oh, that's right. It is coming. That's right.
None of the original cast. It's great.
Well, no, isn't just Kelsey Grammer's coming.
Well, Kelsey
back.
Grammer, but like that's like it. I think I don't think
Yeah.
any of the other ones are back.
David Hyde Pierce didn't want to do it, and didn't the guy who played the dad? I forget his name now.
Isn't he
Well,
dead?
John Maloney passed away.
Yeah, he passed. Yeah.
So I mean, like he hasn't risen from the grave to be part of a show. You're right, and the dog is also dead. So you know, there's limits.
No, that's I didn't want to bring that. I didn't want to bring that up.
was gonna be the one.
Brendan coming in like a hurricane. The dog's dead.
Man, Ross could come back, I guess. I don't know.
Raz.
Yeah, maybe. Well, without David Hyde Pierce, it hardly seems. Oh no, that was I'm thinking of
That's Maris.
that's Maris. No, not Maris. The other one, the maid.
Daphne.
Oh, Daphne.
Daphne.
Daphne, innit?
That's what. Yeah.
Anyways, this is
There we go.
Dana's
Okay.
got it. Dana's got us from the chat. It's fine.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Well, rest in
yeah,
peace.
I mean, do we see it ever coming back? They're saying they're not closing the door on it. Do we see it ever having a chance?
I personally feel like this is like the final nail in the coffin. I think like it's that kind of thing. Like it's just good business to be like, well, we're definitely not closing the door on it, but we'll like look at it in the future. It's like, guys, you've been examining this for 3 years now. If you haven't made it work now,
I mean, it's
you're
the
not going to
first
turn
year
a profit on it.
Reed Pop tried, to be fair.
And that's why I was kind of
Mhm.
sad to see it. This like to really fall out this year. Like even if I wasn't going to be there, like I still wanted to see what they would do with it, right? Like with new management.
Yeah, I mean,
if-
from what I heard, they didn't know, and companies were like, "Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
something, but we don't know what." And Reed Pop was like, "You set up things, and we'll have." They basically like, "We'll just do it," and companies will come fill space, and every company's like, "Yeah, we don't really want to."
yeah, they built
And
Because they were the guys who handled
They can handle PAX.
PAX. Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say PAX feels like a fans convention. Like no,
It's a fan convention.
Okay.
PAX feels like I've heard people say PAX feels like a fan E3. I'm like, they're not the same thing.
yeah.
they also handled Star Wars Celebration too.
Yeah, I believe they do. Yeah.
Mhm.
I've heard pretty good things about that from people I know that have attended that.
Yeah, I've heard good
I
things.
mean, I feel like all these events, no matter how well organized, are always just chaos too. Like these all the ones I've been to have been
Yeah.
at least somewhat chaotic. There's no way to make that machine run perfectly well these days.
I mean, all these conventions, like I think Informa does Fan Expo, and I think they do GDC.
Well, for me, like I don't think it's dead because Summer Games Fest is still a thing. I mean, I don't
Yeah, I
really
think
want to see
it's
that
just-
Keeley
it's
get
just
into
changing
every
its form.
annual event, but if they worked with him, that could be a way
Well-
to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Well, and but to that point, I would say on the other side of that argument is like, that it does kind of like further ask the question of what's the necessity of E3 when you have Summer Game Fest, and to a certain extent too, even just the Game Awards, like basically
Yeah.
doing the job of E3. Like
I
there are
disagree
more
with
game
that.
announcements at E3 than awards.
I think you
Neither.
meant there's more game announcements at the Game Awards than there are awards.
Oh.
I don't think the other thing made no
Thank you.
sense.
You're right. You're right. The Game Awards. Chris, edit that in post.
Here, I edit it, so
Yeah, there you go.
Not take that out.
Edit that
It's
out
staying
too.
there.
Yeah. Now tell you what they're doing.
Edit me
Yeah, I
saying
don't know.
edit.
If they are to come back, though, it needs to really retool itself. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's to go
I-
back to like the way it used to be, where it's just press, like that might be fine too.
I feel that it has to. I feel LA is the bad city to do it. I know a lot of people like it has to be in LA. I think it makes more sense in Vegas or another city.
Yeah.
LA's pricing and where it's based and all this makes it a very hard thing to justify. Like in Vegas, you could say, you rent out a hall, you're good, and you can find a hotel for like $100. In LA, you're looking at like $300-400 a night, even on like cheap days. So if you want to have more people coming, kind of descend on a city and make it so it's affordable and have it so there's things to do beyond when the convention's going on in a city that doesn't. Vegas has a lot of problems. I'm not a huge fan of Vegas, but downtown LA has more.
Yeah, it's
So
I mean,
maybe
I think it's convenient for like all the studios because there's a lot of studios based out of the region.
yep, there are,
But
but
I was gonna
also
throw this
it's
out there. Toronto would be a good city for it.
yeah, Toronto,
Yeah.
Vancouver would be good too.
Vancouver, yeah. Let's move the industry more towards Canada because
Montreal, I like Montreal.
there you go.
You-
But yeah, I mean Vegas, LA, all these places. I mean, it's a really a cheap place to do it. That's gotta be like that.
LA is one of the most
convenient.
expensive.
Yeah,
I think Montreal
yeah.
be cheaper.
I learned that
But
last
this
week.
is yeah, right. LA is just like stupidly expensive for the stupidest things.
And just difficult getting around. Like,
Oh yeah,
I was,
that's the biggest problem. It is not a pedestrian city. But I mean, right now we're just like nitpicking the industry. So let's.
We're just
I
shitting
feel-
on LA.
I mean, I'm happy to do that.
I mean,
But
easy targets, I
feel-
suppose.
Yeah.
yeah,
I haven't been,
Any-
so I
any big
can't-
city.
They can't weigh in.
To be fair,
it's a city. It has some nice points. I'm being overly critical. I just think the downtown core has a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
anyway.
Moving
Well,
on.
moving on. Well, I guess that's a decent enough segue because the reason I was in LA last week was because I was on site to preview Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Mm.
Press event there, and yeah, no, I am. It was a pretty good sign where like when after the event, like on the plane ride home, and when I got home, I was like, I really want to play this game again. I'm gonna put this up. Like, no, wait, nope, that was a preview. I don't actually have access to that anymore.
yep.
It's that moment where you're like, I want to keep playing this thing well past 3 hours. It's always a good sign.
And it gave you basically the first section of the game. Is that right?
Yeah, so the dropped us in just after like the introductory mission.
Yeah.
So we had to play about 3 hours of the game from that point
Cool.
on. It's enough time to really get into the engine and see some of the narrative stuff going on, and I'm really impressed with everything that I saw.
Yeah.
I went back to Fallen Order after that just to continue playing my New Game Plus that I was doing before I left, and
Mhm.
it was a huge, probably because you don't have like you start in Jedi Survivor with most of your abilities and stuff like that from the first game.
So it really does follow right away.
It really does, yeah. Like you got access to the 3 different lightsaber forms right off the bat, where that
That's
was
kinda
more of a slow introduction in Fallen Order.
But
They've added 2 other stances that I didn't get to try. One is like the crossguard, the Kylo Ren style, which is supposed to be really heavy and
right.
really slow, but like pays off with damage.
Mhm.
And then there's also a straight up blaster.
That's kind of cool.
They gave him a gun.
But
so actually, we got. Sorry, go ahead.
I just so the first game you got slowly building the power fantasy. How do they deal with the fact you don't want to have your character overpowered as you kind of like go through the game? You don't want to feel like you basically are God through every step of the process.
Yeah, it's kind of that Metroid dilemma, right? Where like if you start
Okay.
out the game with all the super bombs and stuff, like you're gonna blow through everything. But it struck a pretty good balance in the terms of like you have the parkour skills, you have the lightsaber forms, but you don't have all the things for them, and you don't have all the like the life. You have to like regain all the heals and stuff like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because like you have to unlock more healing items as you
Right.
go.
Mhm.
And it still has that that unique health method where you have to like call your droid to give you a thing and like jab yourself with it. There's still that delay thing.
Okay.
So yeah, like they give you the tools, but they're not sharpened fully.
Okay,
It's
that makes
kinda
sense.
Like, is the combat still like kind of Dark Soulsy in that way, or does it kind of feel, because like hearing Brendan like kind of say like you don't want to start as an overpowered god character made me think of the Force Unleashed, and like the whole fun of that game is being an overpowered god character.
I mean, okay.
That's what it's built for, right?
Exactly.
Force
That's what I
Unleashed, you're
mean.
literally stopping a Star Destroyer from crashing
Yeah.
into the planet.
And it was amazing.
it
You're
also
ripping
had
TIE
no
fighters
challenge.
out of the ground. Like,
there was no
That's also what I was
challenge in
doing to
that
play all
game.
the time.
but it was fun. It was pure fun. All I wanted was
yeah.
to pull TIE fighters out of the sky and smash stormtroopers with them.
Was it the first game or
Crumple
the second game?
AT-ATs into Coke cans.
Was it the first game or second game that started with you as Darth Vader? Is it the first? or
That was the first game.
I think
Okay.
So yeah.
And that was great
The
too, because you
second-
literally just like you're like
Yeah.
waving your hand and like,
Mauling.
blowing away. Yeah,
Like just
it literally
mauling
was.
Wookiees left and right.
By waving, you're like, go away.
Yeah.
Put
Yeah.
Vader
So I
back
mean,
on the
like,
wheat.
but my point is that if the game is still like designed to kind of be like that Dark Soul style combat, where it's a bit more methodic and it requires a little bit more like attention, as opposed to just like, oh, they made this one like a more like action focused game. It's just more about like having fun and tooling around with the lightsaber styles and like kind of like slow building your character who's already really powerful.
Yeah, so the Souls like element is definitely still there. That is like the DNA of the game hasn't changed in that regard. You still have like the Souls like combat, the Uncharted Tomb Raider ish
I was going to say,
exploration.
like looking editing up your video for the preview. I just looked at how like the exploration scenes. They really did have kind of an Uncharted vibe or Tomb Raider vibe to them.
Yeah, definitely. That they're much more fluid too than they were. I mean, like they were fine in the first game, but you also had to hold like L2 to climb and stuff like that. They've taken that out. It's a little more intuitive control wise. But yeah, to like the Souls like point though, it is still like that. You still have to. It's not just pure hack and slash. You have to be a little more methodical. And then if you do get knocked out, it's that like Metroidvania style of you have to go back or the Hollow Knight style really, where you have to go back and find the thing that killed you and hit it to get all your effects back.
Yeah.
That's all still there, and it's all. So actually, there was a point we were kind of said, there's a path to go on, but if you stray off, there's some side quests and stuff you can do. If you find this one, but like about these people lost in the mine, go seek that one out because it's a lot of fun. So I found that person, I sought out the quest, and I ran to a friggin' Rancor at the bottom of the mine. And so yeah, I had the fun experience of going back and dying and running back and dying. And then eventually saying screw this, running back, hitting it once, and getting the hell out of there. Like that's all still there.
Nice.
But yeah, it is very nicely matured though, because like you said, you don't start off with all the skills. You have to kind of get them back, but you have enough of the toys to play with. Which I thought was a really nice balance. It's not like Samus gets hits on the head and loses all her powers at the start of the game. It's you have the tools that aren't as strong as they were.
Or
it doesn't feel like. Well, I was gonna say it doesn't feel like as much of a step back considering it is a sequel, right? So like, and not only that, what's his name again? What's his name? Cal, like is like even just like narratively like older and sort of like more, I guess, battle hardened in this game. So from what I've seen, I actually haven't played. I downloaded Jedi Survivor, and I had I just like. Sorry, Fallen Order. For some reason, I was thinking of Jedi Outcast, and I was like, wait, what's it called again? Totally different game. Very different game. Yeah. So I downloaded Fallen Order. I got it was like a PS Plus or like game, and then I also was able to get the PS5 upgrade. So I've kind of just been like waiting to play it through all the stuff that I've like been going through, and like sort of keeping my eye on this one too. Like it does look. That like even just like narratively he's come a lot further than the first game, so it just like doesn't make sense to have him like lose his abilities, not only because again like like Metroid kind of finds a way to rationalize it. I don't agree with it, but they do find a way to rationalize it. This is like it's like that's not the way the Force and like being a Jedi works. You don't just lose your powers because you took a break for a day.
That
actually Fallen Order without spoiling anything for you handles it really well with how he has been hiding out and how he gains back powers and stuff like that, because he was a Padawan.
Yeah, I've seen like bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it handles that really well throughout the game, and it's really satisfying by the end once you've had that journey. I didn't get to see a ton of the story because of where the demo was. Like you missed the opening, and like you kind of jump into some other scenes later on. But what I did see though, they handled it really well. Like you can tell the 5 years between the games has had a big impact on the character off screen and where he's at now. And some of the stuff that they get into that I can't really talk about is really promising, really exciting as a new Star Wars plot in itself.
The customization made me a little salty, I'll be honest, because as awesome as it looks, I was very upset you can't get a red lightsaber, and I get why you can't get a red lightsaber, but I want a red lightsaber.
You might be in luck by the end of the game because Fallen Order, they added that as post DLC.
Really?
I
Mhm.
don't know if they'll do it for Survivor. Yeah, so like like you can play as Cal in like a Dark Side Inquisitor outfit in Fallen Order. It might be New Game Plus
That's
thing or
all I
something like
want.
that. They added in later on, so
I'm
maybe they'll
Sith
do
for
it with
life, baby.
Survivor.
I mean, I believe that. I literally believe that.
Well,
I have the book
speaking
of
of the
the Sith. It's in
customization,
a box
actually,
somewhere.
speaking of the customization, that was one thing that like blew me away in the menus, like from the get go
Mhm.
with the demo. Um, the so I actually got the chance to talk to some of the guys from the design team who were
Nice. Yeah,
involved with
I
the
was looking for
customization
that.
stuff, and I was kind of surprised to learn that customization had been a bit of an afterthought in Fallen Order because I was kind of
Really?
impressed with it the first game. But there are so many more options for it in Survivor that are it's just the kind of stuff that I freaking love.
Mm.
Mhm.
You can customize the different parts of your lightsaber. You can even customize one half to look one way, the other half to look the other. It lets you do a ton of like lightsaber colors, like orange and stuff like that, which is one of my favorite lightsaber colors. You customize your outfit, your like the pieces of it, your
Mhm.
droids parts, all the colors. And the menu for it is really cool too. So like BD1, your little companion droid, when you're swapping the pieces for him, he's like facing the camera, kind of like 3/4 view. And then like you press left to go to the next piece, and the piece slides down, pops into his head recoils, the part flies out the back. It's a really cool little animation every little
It's
time.
kind of cool.
Um, yeah, and like lightsaber options look, yeah, it's fantastic. Even just some of the stuff I
Nice.
found playing around in the demo was really promising for that department. So
Awesome.
speaking of which, I did come up with a little present from EA. It's Cal's actual lightsaber.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Does it light up or anything? Or what does it do?
It can, but it doesn't come with a blade. I had to get that from Disney Parks website. But
You have
this
to
is
buy.
one of the
You have to buy the
recreations they
blade.
sell. Well, yeah.
Okay.
So these ones are actually on sale in Galaxy's Edge at the one like souvenir shop. Like they're like the high
Okay.
quality replicas. They're
Hmm.
incredibly solid, really heavy,
Mhm.
and
Right.
yeah, so you can buy them with or without the blade as well, depending on what you
Why
want.
did
So.
they? I don't understand why you'd get it without the blade. But then again, I don't really understand what it does.
I didn't mind because I had to get it in my suitcase, my
Oh,
carry-on suitcase.
Yeah.
home, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't mind.
I was gonna
That
say.
was the concession. That was
I guess the
okay with.
blades are big. I'm guessing.
Like 32 inches. They detach from this obviously because you can
Okay.
get it without it. But yeah, that would have been.
That's
It
really
was
cool.
hard enough to get my press kit home with me in my suitcase.
There you go. Okay, I didn't even consider that. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was fine with that. It's a cool gift.
It's a really cool gift, I have to say.
Yeah, it was a fun trip actually. It was my first press event in person, so that was a
Well, there you
cool
go.
thing. Never been to LA or the
They're
West
pretty
Coast
rad.
at all, so.
Did they take you out to nice restaurants for dinner?
Uh, no, but we had like catering at the events and stuff like that, and that was really
Okay.
fun. So
That's fair.
there was a little press event, and you'll see some of the people that were there at the event are actually posing with Cameron Monaghan.
Mm.
But I had an early flight, and so I left a little early. And as I was walking out, who walks in but Cameron Monaghan?
There he
Like I
is.
passed him on the street, and I was like, he was doing the triple take to like actually say something as he's going by. Yeah, well, timing
That's too
sucks,
bad.
but anyways, yeah,
What
that
can
was
you
a
do?
fun treat.
It's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, sounds super cool.
Yeah, so speaking of things that you guys might have enjoyed recently, you have a couple video game movie reviews this week.
Yeah, I did not see Mario, so I cannot comment on that one. But Zuby seemed to really like it.
I also saw it last night.
Okay, so Jordan can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes, I put on my nice Mario pin in honor because it was solid gold, baby.
I mean,
you know what? I'll be honest. I was actually a little surprised. Not at Zuby's review, but at his score, because his review does not read like a 7.5. I
I
would have
think
gone way higher with it. Like,
I think he's saying it for it's kind of shallow, and that makes sense.
I don't know. I
If you didn't
genuinely
like, okay, Jordan, if you didn't like Mario, and you just kind of like you wanted a movie, does it have enough there to
no.
make
You know
itself
what?
so-
I honestly, yeah, I agree. I agree with Zuby and like pretty much the like host of critics, not the hoity-toity ones that have been bombing it on
I mean,
Rotten
to be
Tomatoes for
fair,
some reason.
sitting on Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's sitting at like
Yeah,
54.
because it's a
So-
bunch of hoity-toity film critics who are like comparing this to like Shakespeare for some reason. It's really
I don't
stupid.
think
They're
that's
not- they-
true.
Brendan, I've read them. They really like reviewed this
I've-
movie like it was fucking high art. Like,
I've read
like
some of them.
it does not deserve the bombing it's been getting by some of these film critics. Because like I agree that like the one criticism that I had about it, that I think a lot of people had about it, was that it does move very fast. But I really didn't like, it doesn't feel like an issue, like, to me, like, because of like it because of it, like the material it's based on, like it kind of moves at the same speed that the game would. You're kind of just like, you're going through it, it's hitting all the beats you sort of need to hit. Like for an hour, even for an hour and a half movie, it like there's never a dull moment. It just keeps moving, which, like, again, you can kind of see like where there are some moments like between like Mario and the princess where, like, you know,
Right.
maybe slowing down a little bit and letting us get to know these characters a little bit more would have been better, but it doesn't feel particularly necessary. Like the whole point of the movie is that, like, it's like, you know, it's your classic hero going on an adventure story. They just, you know, they go place to place to get what they need to get, and then, like, you know, fight the bad guys, and it's done. So like, yeah, you know, and even for like, even like, because I was thinking about like, you know, like taking my niece to see this. My niece isn't the biggest gamer. She does know who Mario is, like, because I've
Right.
introduced her to it. And like, you know, even like, so like for her, like not being the biggest game fan, because for me, I was in the theater, like I was excited to see it, and then like you start seeing it,
Mhm.
and boy, did they get it right. Like, wow. Like,
Okay.
from the style of the movie, I like it does a really funny, clever thing that I was not expecting, where the movie actually opens with that like commercial that they made for like, just for like press stuff, but it's an extended version, and Chris Pratt is actually doing like a faux Italian accent Mario voice, and it worked like genuinely well. But they kind of like joke about how, like, oh, you know, like for the commercial, it was just for the commercial, was the Italian accent too much, you know, like, and I'll be honest, Chris Pratt like playing Mario, it really wasn't as bad as I was initially thinking it was. Like it kind of grew on me after a while.
I was gonna ask, because you were kind of down on the idea on the podcast.
Yeah, no,
before,
that's what I
so-
mean. It was the one thing I was the most like not looking forward to. But then like after a
Right.
little while, I was like, okay, you know what? Like, you know what? It actually works. He's not doing a terrible job. Like, you can kind of hear the little hints of the Brooklyn accent here and there. Like,
Okay.
even Charlie Day as Luigi, like he's not really going over the top with like an Italian voice, or really hammering that like Brooklyn accent, but his voice does suit Luigi, like, as did like Seth Rogen playing Donkey Kong. And Seth Rogen was
Right.
like joking in interviews how he flat out said, I'm not doing voices. Like, if you want me to play Donkey Kong's gonna sound like me. And I was like, yeah, Donkey Kong should sound like Seth Rogen.
I mean, sure, why not?
Yeah, like you know, they establish like, and it's like, and all the groundwork is laid pretty quickly, right? Like, even like with like Mario getting to the Mushroom Kingdom and sort of like needing to, like, you know, prove himself through that little obstacle course. Like, they do that in the beginning, where he's sort of like
Right.
they're late for work, they're running through this like construction site, and you can kind of see like, okay, like he's not like terrible at like jumping and getting over stuff, but like
Right.
realistically. And then of course, like, Jack Black as Bowser just stole the entire movie. Like, they went really smart with it. They wrote Bowser basically like they do in all the Mario RPGs, where like the main crux of his like goal is just because he's like in love with Peach and he wants to like get her to marry him, but he's such a big dumb meathead, he doesn't know any other way like how to do that other than being a big dumb meathead. But like, every line out of him was pure gold. Like, he was playing piano at one point, he was singing songs, it was absolutely hysterical. But like the biggest thing, and this is the thing that's like, I think it's actually going to be, it's good for kids and like adults alike, was the style of it. Like, it's beautiful to look at, it moves, it feels really fluid and fun, and it's like there's so much attention to detail, and I think that really did come in large part to Nintendo being so hands-on with it. Like it took me a second, like when the movie starts, like they're in a pizzeria, and on the wall of the pizzeria are all these like framed photos of like boxers, and right away I recognized, I was like, those are Punch Out characters. And then sure enough, the place was called Punch Out Pizzeria. Like all over like Brooklyn, when they're running around, you see all these like all the stores, and like they're all references to Nintendo games. At one point, Mario was literally in his room playing Kid Icarus on an NES. They throw a lot of like reference to like Mario stuff in, like once he actually gets to the Mushroom Kingdom. Like there's maps on the wall that look like the world screen from Super Mario World. You know, like they pepper in little like sound effects, like for when the characters like jump or use the special attacks. Like, you know, even like when they get to the Valley of the Kongs, like you see all these like great references to Donkey Kong, like both like the old school and like the newer games. And even like the musical score, like because the movie kind of starts like a little bit of like, you know, this orchestrated Mario theme, but then like when Mario and Luigi are running to their first plumbing job, it's playing No Sleep in Brooklyn. So I was just like, okay, so they actually did and I was kind of like, I get it, it's Illumination, it's Universal, you know, they're gonna throw in some like probably some, you know, it's like they have to do it, they're contractually obligated like or something like, but surprisingly they do a really good job. Like it doesn't feel like this like forced attempt to put like the latest trendy like pop song in a movie. Like they did a really good balance of like orchestrated Mario music and Donkey Kong like video game music, but at the same time they threw in a couple like, you know, known music tracks that like felt like they worked well in the context of what they were, right? So like honestly, I was
thinking that with that commercial with the rap thing too, like they kind of have that Beastie Boys kind of influence on that version of the song, and like and that they use No Sleep Till Brooklyn. That's a great little
yeah, because it's like it really like, it didn't feel overbearing, because that's what I mean. Like when it gets to the part where like, you know, they're about to do the Mario Kart, and it's like, you know, they're saying, because that's the whole Kongs like thing, right? The Kongs are all about like getting around in carts, and that's their whole like, that's like the crux of their military. And like, you know, he's like, Cranky Kong basically says like, what are you guys waiting for? Like, go like bake your cart. And it starts by playing the like menu music from Mario Kart 8. You know what I mean? While they're in there, but then once they sort of like, and it's showing all the different like elements of the cart building garage. But then once they like get to start building their carts, it's like it cues up Thunderstruck, AC/DC, and it's like it really did feel like a good balance of both things. Like it never felt cheap. And like yeah, like it like everything really like worked. It just like it hit all the right notes. It genuinely did feel like the kind of movie that like if we had gotten that movie when we were kids, like like that would have been it. Forget it. Like not to say like, you know,
Jordan, the Super Mario Brothers movie was amazing. Like it was,
I love
sublime.
it. I'll go to bat for that movie any day. I love that movie. I was literally just about to say, as much as I love, and even as a kid, I loved the like campiness of the original live action Mario movie.
I wanted them to go as far as they did before the studio's like, yeah, maybe we don't have hardcore sex in our Mario movie. Yeah, maybe we take that out. We're going to take out the nudity because that makes no sense.
As Gen Z would say, pure.
Everyone wants to know. Everyone wants to know.
I didn't. Yeah, that movie was bonkers.
It's great. Yeah, no, and then like so it like really was just like to kind of wrap it up. Like it's it really is like such a great like combination of all those things. Like they do such a good job in every single moment. Like there literally wasn't a moment that I wasn't like, I was like doing like, oh my god, like that's that like the first moment Luigi is in like the like when he lands in sort of like Bowser area, and you can see it's all scary. There's like they do like the orchestral string of like Luigi's Mansion theme, right? You know, they do like a flashback to like Luigi's thinking about how Mario was always protecting him. They do a flashback, and they actually have like the baby Luigi, baby Mario like characters, and they look so like accurate. They did. And then the one thing that like when it dawned on me, because it's a really weird thing, they show Mario like and Luigi like at dinner in like with this big Italian like family.
Right.
And there's all these just like weird side characters that kind of look like Mario characters, but also just look like you're like no like regular like Brooklyn Italian. But the guy,
Yeah.
so I was under the impression that Charles Martinet was doing the voice of Foreman Spike, who was like the villain from the original Wrecking Crew. He voices Mario's dad. And when that dawned on me, I literally like melted in my chair.
That's a nice place to stick.
like-
Yeah.
Like I was just like, oh my god, it worked. It was so like it really was, I think, everything that we were genuinely hoping it to be. And
Okay.
when I walked out of the theater and I realized, I was like, holy shit, now we have a solid Sonic the Hedgehog movie and a solid Mario movie. Maybe things aren't so bad after all.
I'm
Things are gonna
scanning
be
through the,
okay.
I'm scanning through the Metacritic scores there, and a lot of like
Right.
the lowest ones are the newspaper critics.
Mhm.
I mean, this isn't who this is for. It's not.
Exactly
I
my
mean,
point.
I was just pulling. I was actually pulling that up. I was looking through just how that movie is doing. Its reviews are all over the map, like all over the map. Like you know, like
90s through all the way through the 20s. Yeah, it's
yeah, it is
Mhm.
literally all of like New York Magazine. You have the Financial Times. Like the people that are also the people that are giving it good scores and bad scores make also no sense. It's really
Like
completely bonkers where it all is.
this is the thing, like as much as I love Mario, I know I've been gushing it, like and
You
kind
very
of like
much you have, yes.
fanboying out, but I like to I think we can all say that for the most part I'm a pretty objective critic. I
I
genuinely
didn't
like
say that, but
listen, I've shit on Nintendo for when it calls for it. Like,
Mhm.
but this movie, like I genuinely couldn't see where people would watch this and see a bad movie. Like even people who would make that pedantic argument that it's like, or that like derisive or not derisive, sorry, that oh my god, I'm all like pooped out. I just forgot the word. The dismissive argument that it's like, oh, it's just a
Okay.
kids movie, so who cares? Like this doesn't feel like a kids movie that is insulting or not well thought out. And I literally like a couple weeks ago, I watched a stupid as hell movie called Red Shoes and the Seven Dwarfs that I could literally go on for an hour about how stupid and pointless and badly written that whole movie was. And anyone could write that off and just be like, oh, it's just for kids, who cares? It's like, being for kids doesn't mean it needs to be bad. Like, and this
Right.
this wasn't bad. Was it a little fast? Sure. Like maybe like narratively speaking, if you want to get that deep into the narrative structure of the Super Mario movie,
yeah.
like, okay, like that, if it was like based on like Paper Mario or the Mario RPGs, which are supposed to be like narratively driven things, okay, like maybe there's an argument to be made there. But it's literally like they took Super Mario in the same way that the 80s movie did and did a kind of one-to-one adaptation. They explained everything that needed to be explained. Everything works in like they literally explained like that, like you get the power-ups, like Peach tells Mario, you get the power-ups, you eat them or you touch them, whatever, you get the power. If you get hit once, you lose the power-up. And like they show that in universe how that works. Like it's like it does everything it sort of needs to do. It's digestible, it's fun. Like it's at no point like is it like, is it going to be the same as like watching like The Man on the High Tower? No. But like
fair,
that's not
I mean, okay.
that's not the movie this is. Like this is a popcorn flick. It's fun. It's beautifully created. It's like well scored, well written. It's got heart. Like I don't see where all the issue is. Like what were people expecting? and I'm a guy too who personally, like, as much as I have problems even with like the first Sonic movie, even the second Sonic movie, like this genuinely feels a bit better than those. Like it's a little bit more true to what it wants to be. It's not just trying to be like another, the road trip anthropomorphic animal goes on a road trip with human character for some reason. Like this actually does feel truer to what it actually is.
Yeah, plus it has such a wide audience, right? Like I'm considering taking my 3.5-year-old to see it, and
Right.
like if it was any more in depth than that, than what it is, I wouldn't be considering it. It would be a total.
I mean,
No.
I view it like I don't think animated movies need to mean it's simple or it's fast.
No, not at all.
Like look, the 80s and 90s, they were filled with fantastic animated movies that
100%.
could be enjoyed by kids and adults. And I think we kind of have gone away. We've gone away from that for a bit, but I'm glad to see that sort of thing back.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a whole people don't. Yeah, there's a whole like misunderstanding about what kids movies need to be, and like I'm totally with you on this one. They don't all have to be. Yeah, it's hard to put a pin on it, right? Because like you don't want to pander to too much to kids,
Right.
but
This
like
this
gotta
is
have some substance to it.
and this is what I mean. Like it was one of the things that I initially worried about when Illumination got it, because Illumination has put out some kind of pandering kids
No, I
fare,
disagree with
right?
that. I think Illumination have put a lot of bad movies out, but they also have done.
No, I agree. I agree 100% because like Despicable Me 1, fantastic.
I was
Despicable
just
Me
gonna say,
2,
like,
not great, but not terrible. Despicable Me 3, pandering bullshit. Minions,
yeah, I mean,
pandering bullshit.
yeah, but I think the
Sing,
first
good
Despicable
movie.
Me's- did they do Megamind too? I think no, it was DreamWorks.
No, that was DreamWorks.
That was legitimately
DreamWorks,
good, too.
yeah, no, DreamWorks has been consistently knocking it out of the park.
No, that's not true. But they've done it a few times. It has been okay. They've done a lot of real bad stuff. Megamind was one
All
of the
the
ones
houses
that I
have
thought
had some messy track issues. Let's
yeah,
go.
but
okay,
Illumination. I think they did a really good job with Despicable Me 1.
Yeah. Sing was good. Secret Life of Pets I heard was good too. Like
I mean, I don't. I have. They do pander a bit in their
Yeah.
like pure kid stuff, but it seems like this they kind of have a mix of they know adults are going to be watching it. Hell, like it
Yeah.
seems like the people that worked on it are fans themselves. And then you had people that people just know, they know it's a kids movie. They want to bring their kids to it, and I think that's a good balance to have, and I think that works.
But that's exactly what I mean. This to me, like it at no point did it feel like pandering. Like the jokes weren't hammy. They didn't try to like cram in pop culture references for no reason. Like everything felt like genuine. Everything felt like a lot of the humor came from the characters and how they like exist in their own universe. Like
that punch out reference that you mentioned there, like okay, that makes sense holistically. Like they're eating in a diner in New York. Let's throw some punch out characters on the walls. Like it's an easy little
boxing characters, right?
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be it's not like they found some way to like shoehorn Samus into the background of a shot, right?
No.
Like it's so there's holistic.
I mean,
I think the one thing that I saw that I recognized it was a snapshot was like when they go it's kind of in the commercial where Mario's like checking the sink. They go into this like really like expensive high-rise apartment in Brooklyn and like there's a glass sculpture. It's like blink and you'll miss it of a Pikmin. And I was kind of like, little things like that, like Luigi's ringtone is the GameCube like startup noise, like it's little things like that. It's like blink and you'll miss it, but it's purely for like the fans in that moment, right? Like
I think there is a good value to that. I just I worry that they might go back to the well one too many times.
Well, I don't know the extent of that, because again, like Nintendo really does have such a rich like pool to draw
really
from.
like money.
They do like money and
money, yeah.
I will say, and I'll even because again, depending on who you go with, there are two post credits scenes. So like if your kids, I was about to say, if your kids don't want to sit through like a 10-minute, like credit scroll, I will say what happens at the second credit, it does kind of set up for. Okay.
leave it.
All I will say is that it was I
There's
do
once
lots
you
leave
of
it.
see
there's
it.
lots of reviews that are
Okay,
saying
no.
this sets
Yeah.
up future movies. Like,
Well, okay. What I'll say is I get where they're going with it. It makes a lot of sense, but I'm disappointed for other reasons.
Yeah, I mean, like,
That's all you need to say.
I'm disappointed for the characters they didn't show that I was hoping they would show.
I feel just
like
leave
for
it there.
your example of like the pandering bullshit movies that, like, as you were saying, to use your words, like Despicable Me 3,
Yeah.
Minions, like the fourth movie of that series. Technically, that's when you start getting into the pandering
no,
stuff. That's the temp
there's
fishing
5
comes
now.
in.
There's
There's
4,
two.
Because
Yeah, I've been seeing.
and there's the
yeah,
Rise of
second one,
Gru,
yeah.
which is like prequel. So like there's a
and
lot.
and I heard the Rise of Gru actually isn't that bad for a Minions movie, but yeah, like the other Minions movies were. I watched the first one; it was absolute dog shit.
There's fun stuff to those kinds of movies, and then there's just
The
just
Grinch
janky
too,
paychecks.
the Lorax was. Bleh.
I mean, I
But
liked like half the Lorax. Then I'm like, oh nope, it's still going.
No,
still going.
yeah, it's
Why
gonna
did they
tell
need
the
it?
same
This could have been
story
20
twice for
minutes.
some reason.
Like it
much like
literally
a
could have been
Dr.
20
Seuss
minutes,
book, it just
and
keeps going.
like it basically
Yeah.
told the story of the Lorax. And they're like, what if?
What if we did it again, but in
What if the
modern
world
times?
around you? And now there's something like it got real dumb, and I just like I don't really care.
What if the child puts the only corporation in the entire city out of business? That's not going to have a knock-on effect on anything.
Anyways, that wasn't the only video game movie that came out this week.
Oh
We've
yeah,
also
I mean
got the release of Tetris on Apple
Yeah,
Plus.
did you see that, Chris? Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't yet watched it. I haven't had a chance. I will say that I have watched the gaming historians documentary on the actual story, which seems
Yeah.
like it told the story as
Mhm.
well as it needs to. It sounds like a fascinating story in its own right, though. So I am very curious about how it really was.
I think so. Was me and Dana were going through like the movies we had to watch for like review and stuff, and I did not expect how dense and stressful the Tetris movie would be. Because the way it's presented, like you watch the trailers, it seems like it's kind of a fun romp. Even how it starts, it has those like it has interstitials that are all done in like a kind of an 8-bit style. You're like, oh, it's a fun movie about Tetris. But it really it works for the most part. I think it does. It loses the for me. I felt the tone was a bit all over the place because you had really serious scenes regarding the Iron Curtain and how like how things in Russia are so corrupt and so twisted that creativity is kind of stifled even though they want to see it help everyone. Then you had scenes with like depicting like this people that worked at the Maxwell family. They were done with like the person that plays his son, the guy that's like the CEO of what the company that originally got the license to Tetris. He's mugging for the camera a lot, so a lot of like what? And then they have the dad person who's just he feels more like a cartoon in a world of real people. And that dichotomy and that kind of contrast for me didn't work. I felt it took away from those like imperative moments when he was like, oh wow, like this family is basically going to be destitute if the situation doesn't go the way it needs to. And I don't know if kind of going a little bit silly with a few characters when they're part of the scenes that are serious worked for me, but I could just be overly critical on that aspect.
That was my kind of takeaway from the trailer too, is that the toning seemed really weird. Like, again, having heard the real life story
Yeah.
behind it and like all the intricacies of that, it really seemed like they were doing 2 or 3 different movies just based on the trailer. Like, there's the campy story of like, oh, this game I close my eyes, I see the bricks falling, all that stuff, and then it gets to the point where they're having like guns waved in their faces, and it's like the freaking Bourne movies. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you have like you have like the family or the Maxwells that are like supposed to be billionaires that like are trying to like go around the Tyron Edgerton. Is that how you say it?
Jared Edgerton, yeah,
Taron Edgerton, yeah. His character feels very part of the world. He brings the emotion, he brings that kind of depth to the character that really worked. But then you have like the people that play the Maxwell family. As I said, the younger guy is like mugging the entire time. The older guy is in a massive fat suit, and it looks cartoonish in the way it's kind of done. And then you have people, the guy that created Tetris, Alexi, and he looked,
Paginos,
yeah, I've met him once.
Really?
Yeah, it was at a video games live, and he was just kind of there. But like you could see his like strive, you could see his struggles. But then he's playing against a character that feels like a cartoon. I'm like, what? That was a choice. Okay, why not? Okay. It feels like they wanted it to be fun, so they just say, "Oh, these characters are going to be a little bit wacky," but like from what I understand, like from the last part of the movie, it seemed like that family basically was like completely corrupt. Like the dad like killed himself potentially. Like it wasn't exactly a funny character, even though they made him that way. So there's a lot of tonal dissidence that didn't work. That being said, the things that did worked really well. Like you had like Nintendo really kind of showing like the power Nintendo had during that time period, like where it was a massive company, where the amount of like a single game on their console was worth millions. Just like they're like, yeah, this is going to be here. It's going to be, this is how much it's going to sell, and it's going to be this massive game. And the fact that that is the center of what's going on, so much so that it's a massive incident for the entire country, like Russia as a country, is bonkers, but also riveting. And I think that really did work. And just, I don't know if the creators of the movie like had a tone they wanted to go for. Like, do we make it a little bit fun? Do we make it a little bit edgy? And I don't know if they found that like balance that really worked. But the things that did work worked really well.
I thought I heard too that like as it's as much as it is like the more or less the true story, like they did embellish it a little bit, because I think it was interesting to me, because I still been meaning to watch it, but my mom was watching it the other night, and I was like, it's kind of like it's one of those things where it's just like, it's a good movie if like your mom will enjoy it, but granted, all moms love Tetris.
Yeah, that's fair.
But even she was kind of saying, like, she's like I didn't realize like the story behind this was so crazy, like this is nuts.
Yeah, no, like at the end, I don't want to spoil anything, but you have like an international incident going on as like over a contract. I'm like, how is it okay? Like I never knew
Tetris did this.
I never knew a contract signing could be this engaging. Like, oh my God, is he going to sign his name? Oh, he signed his name.
He's going to be etching receipts.
Oh my God, a fax is coming through. He did a fax.
What does it say? What does it say?
Oh my God, oh, he made it so he could use a fax machine. Oh my God.
That's like I'm pretty sure there was no like guns waved in real life in anyone's face, but
I mean, you didn't have Nintendo executives running away from the KGB. That didn't happen.
Yeah, not literally, at least. Yeah, like I know there was underground, like there was a secret mission done all that stuff, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was
like the Bourne movies. Yeah,
it was literally the Bourne movies with executives from a video game. I'm like that. I mean, sure, but I doubt they do that. But okay.
Yeah.
I don't think they put their lives on the line to sign a contract, but maybe they did. I don't know.
They really wanted to make that money,
Yeah, I mean, like it's one of the top selling games of all time.
Yeah, it did pan out.
So it's just crazy to see a movie that it's kind of advertised one way. It's advertised as like this is fun journey in the world of Tetris, and it's much more like, as you said, a video game based, a Bourne movie or like a Bourne Legacy type movie based around contract signing and a video game. So it's such a weird concept, but
it's funny and interesting, because I remember too, like when I feel like maybe we were all kind of like this, like when the initial announcements that they were going to make a Tetris movie, we were all just like, oh my God, how are they going to mess this up? Like how do you make a movie out of Tetris? And like the the clear answer was just tell the story about how it got made because it was bonkers.
It was. I mean, well, the thing is,
Yeah.
the story of how it got made was people were being creative in a repressive society. How it like came to the West is what's crazy, and how
The whole
like
bidding war that went on there.
yeah,
Yeah.
how it's such a symbol of the end of the Soviet Union, and you might not think of it, but that's kind of if you ever see like the early days of like Tetris boxes and stuff, they all have like the Kremlin on them and all that stuff. So it is a game so tied into what the Russia and the USSR was that it's just kind of crazy to see it is such a staple for so many people as like one of the games everyone has played.
Mhm.
Yeah, like well, like you said, all moms love Tetris. Like I
Yeah.
remember my parents stealing my Game Boy when I was a kid so they could play Tetris. Like,
But yeah, like
they used to like
what
call dibs on it.
but there's a scene in the movie which I think is so telling to how um gaming kind of is what it is today was they were looking Jordan is eating something very loud. Um
A
okay.
little snacky snack.
Fisherman's
Um,
friends. It's good for the throat.
But like there's a scene where like they're like, oh, we're gonna put Mario as the packing game, and they're like, no, if you want to sell like millions of consoles, you'll put Tetris on the Game Boy. And I'm like, yep, that's accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
if it was just like if it just came with a standard Mario game, I don't think it would have been near as massive
No.
as it was. It was something that anyone could pick up, and they're like, yep, I understand what the system is. I get it.
Yep.
It's easy to play,
And it was infinitely more playable than the original. Like if they put Mario Land
Yep.
was good for the time. It
Yep.
doesn't hold up today, I think.
Yep.
But
I
like
mean,
Tetris
Game Boy was
still
lit.
holds up.
The video game the Game Boy was limited, and that Tetris was a game that used that limitation and worked with it. It
Mhm.
plays on a small screen. It's a game you can sit there and play for hours. It's
Yep.
still a game that countless people play just constantly. And I
Yeah.
think I think Apple did that movie, and I think they did a really good job with it. It really does work. I just didn't expect it to be as like edge of your seat as it
Mhm.
was.
And that's
Well,
probably
it's a
where
whole good
like
movie.
where the Apple execs came into the room and were like, we need to punch this up. We need to get some more guns, get some
Let's
explosions.
Bondify this movie.
chase
Yeah,
scene.
how can we make this this video game executive really exciting?
Give him a gun.
Yeah.
But it's
Especially
really
like
well.
like a
Worked for
Doom
Shadow
style
the
first
Hedgehog.
person sequence. Yeah. Like,
Oh. But I have to say, Edgerton did a fantastic job in the role. He made the character his own, and I really do think that it, anyone else in that role might not have achieved the movie that is infinitely watchable. So yeah, hats off to him. He is showing a massive a massive range in his acting skills that just make me excited to see what he does next.
I was also pretty impressed just by the trailers. With the actor that got to play Yamauchi.
Yeah.
From Nintendo, like that was
Yeah,
eerily close. Just from
I
the
know,
trailers alone.
right? Those scenes were so interesting. The way they kind of the gonzo way that video game companies and such worked back in that day, but also the fact that you look if you watch of how like ragtag video game companies were in North America, they just kind of like whatever there's people in the garage, whatever. But how rigid and controlled Nintendo was even
Oh
back
yeah.
then, like it was. Well, you had like Midway, like making games in like in a basement somewhere, just kind of doing whatever. Nintendo felt even from like that time period was such a like controlled corporation
Oh
that
yeah.
it is such a
It's
such a
it's different
yeah
because you know why? Because a lot of people I think like associate Nintendo like even from the business side
Yeah.
with either like Shigeru Miyamoto or like Reggie.
yeah
And even back then, like a lot of people knew Shigeru Miyamoto because of like all the games he was creating, but like Yamauchi was a ruthless businessman. Like
yeah
he knew how to get shit done.
exactly. And I think just seeing that side, like, oh, all these other companies are kind of just like winging it, like attending CES and just kind of having a booth, seeing what happens, and there's like their offices are just like in the back of a room somewhere. And Nintendo's like, no, it's a corporation. It is that's the thing they do, and they do it well. It is just it's an interesting take on the industry, and it for anyone that cares about any kind of video game history, it's so worth watching, even just for that.
Yeah, that's why I'm
I'm
kind of
digging
curious
into it.
about it too, because like I said, I think the shout out to the gaming historian channel on YouTube, like
Yep.
did a fantastic like hour-long documentary
Mhm.
about like the actual details of it. So I was
Yeah.
again
Was this
to see
in run
Hollywood
up to the
take on
movie,
stories
or
like this. Sorry, no,
was
like
this in
on
run?
the game. This was like a few years
No, I
back.
meant like a while back, because it wasn't just like, here's our documentary as the movie comes out.
I wouldn't be surprised if someone like saw that documentary and pitched the story based off of it. If it inspired, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, like
That's really
it's
cool.
cool to see the Hollywood take on video
Mm.
game history, right? Because like talking
Yeah.
about Mario earlier, it's rare enough to see a good video game movie, but let alone to treat the industry like it's a serious thing.
Yeah.
And not just like, oh, video games are for kids, beep or bop, like to treat it with some gravitas, even if they shoehorn some boring style bullshit in there.
Yeah, they
it's-
definitely did that,
Mhm.
but I think it worked for as I said, for the most part, it worked.
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
I don't think it worked. I don't think it worked fully, but the things that worked really well.
But
There's
and you
prob-
know what? Oh, sorry, Brandon.
No, I was just saying. I was going to say. I was kind of wrapping it up. So please go, Jordan.
Oh no, I was gonna say that like real like and realistically, like the best kinds of documentaries are the ones that are sort of like not necessarily just straight telling of facts, like you like
Right.
wrap it up in or you package it in something that is super engaging.
Right.
We watched that one that was nominated for an Oscar. What was it called again? Argentina, 1985. That movie was an amazing watch about
Okay.
basically like how that like this attorney took down or like and was able to charge Argentina's government with with war crimes essentially, and it was all true. It's basically they took down the dictatorship,
Interesting.
and it was like because it was such an engaging, well made movie.
Right.
Like I was like on the edge of my seat the whole time. Like are these guys gonna do it? Like are they gonna get it? Like this lawyer's being like he's being like sort of like followed by the current government
Right.
and like military officials who are like loyal to the old dictatorship. And I was like literally it's like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen next?
Yeah.
Even though it's all history, it's all available.
Yeah. You could just literally. Oh, that's what happened. Cool. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they live. Okay, they're alive. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It came down. Cool. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think video games have come a long way, and seeing the like movies like the Mario movie and the Tetris movie, like treat it less like a throwaway fad and more like, hey, yeah, these are major parts of the industry now. These are like important things, much like the development of like the Apple or the iPhone and stuff like that.
Mhm.
These are seminal parts of media and culture that we have to kind of recognize and have to take into
Yeah,
consideration that they do matter.
absolutely.
And
Like
we're seeing more of that lately, and I think that's great. Like even just like, hey, maybe we shouldn't just fart this out and hope it's fine and actually put effort into it. And I think even if you throw out a few extra like weird car chases in, that's okay. You're taking it
Yeah.
seriously. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, it's always a tricky thing with any history type thing, right? Where you start embellishing stuff that you start losing the thread of why you even tell a historical story if you're
Yeah.
not.
I mean, I will
telling it
say one thing.
accurately, but
I will say one thing. Just seeing the amount of money, like in today's world, like $100 million can be spent on a game easily. But in the movie that I was talking, like, oh, you need $2 million. Oh, so much money.
that's
I'm like, I mean, yes, for me that'd be a massive amount of money. But
most
the-
AAA games.
like, if you gave a AAA studio $1 million, like, we can last for 3 months. We're great. Like, I couldn't imagine running Ubisoft on that for more than a few months. So, like, the fact that they're talking about like that's all the budget they have to do everything they're doing, I'm like, that seems impossible in today's money. But the fact that that's where we come from, and now we're in a situation where a company will spend that on a booth at E3.
Well, even just straight inflation rates. I'm just
Yeah,
checking this online. It looks like 2 million in 1989 dollars would be almost 5 billion or 5
yeah.
million. So
But
like,
even that,
yeah,
like, that's still like a low budget Hollywood movie, a game,
yeah,
like very few games, like an indie game, sure, but beyond that, $5 million would do very little in today's world of gaming.
yeah.
And 4K game, you couldn't build a 4K game cheaply for that.
Really says a lot about how far the industry's come.
Yeah.
Putting
Well, I
me,
mean,
putting
like,
me from that perspective.
we're at a situation where it's no longer one guy working on a computer in his garage. It is a massive industry, one of the biggest industries right now in the world. And just take into consideration how far we've come from Nintendo like controlling it to three massive corporations all fighting for just capturing a few chances to kind of get those gamers. Look at this Microsoft lawsuit going on right now. Microsoft and Sony fighting over who gets Activision. And we're talking massive billions of dollars at stake. It's just such a different world. And it's interesting to see watching Tetris or watching like any of these documentaries about early stage of gaming, how far we've come.
Yeah, really lost the agility, but
Yeah, it's much
yeah.
it's much less genuine at times, I guess.
I'm just trying to think of like the trying to imagine like a game being cooked up by a guy in his spare time on his computer,
I mean, Stardew
becoming
Valley.
this huge overnight success in modern age. No, that just hasn't
Again,
happened.
I say
Yeah.
Stardew Valley.
No, that's what the closest. And even then, how long did he have? How long
It
was
was
it
like
a solo
it was
development on that one?
years. It was years.
Yeah,
And that was also directly inspired by like another game that
Yeah,
was
it wasn't just like I created this new
successful.
concept completely from scratch.
Yeah.
yeah. It was the whole yeah. It wasn't
Farming
wholesale.
sims? No one's ever done that.
He based his remade Harvest Moon. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're way off in the weeds again.
I mean, we definitely are, but I mean, sometimes that's the best podcast. Just kind of talking about what excites
Swinging
you,
it.
right?
Podcast versus the world.
That's actually an interesting question that you brought up, Chris. I'm trying to rack my brain a little bit too to think of like something that was just kind of like cooked up out of nowhere and just became like a smash hit. I you know what? I think
Definitely
the
not on the scale of a Tetris. Like that hasn't happened
Yeah.
again.
the
I mean, Plants vs
closest
Zombies, maybe like
Plant-
or like Angry Birds.
I would
Flappy
argue
Bird.
Yeah.
I would
Flappy.
argue, and this might segue into our other topics, but
Okay.
maybe Five Nights at Freddy's or maybe Undertale.
I can see.
Because
Yeah,
Undertale
Undertale,
was
yeah.
kind of inspired a little bit by
Mother.
Earthbound, but it's not
Oh.
really it's not really like those games the same way Stardew's like Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I think
but even then, like to go on to like that kind of scale of success, either right,
Yeah.
like Tetris became, it's still the game that our
I
parents
get
would
I
play.
guess that's true. I guess that is
FNAF
true.
has like a strong following and like a lot of
Yeah.
merchandise, but it's not that hasn't fully penetrated the entire culture.
Yeah. Agreed.
I'm not sure because like it really does feel like almost I guess maybe it's
No.
different now because you know what maybe
Undertale-
it's
I think
I'll say-
Undertale. Continue, Jordan. Sorry.
I will say okay yes Undertale not as much. Undertale is still very kind of a cult.
It's
It's a hit or
culture,
miss
yeah.
thing, but Five Nights at Freddy's I do feel has that kind of
Mm.
like massive following.
No,
And
I'm gonna-
but and this is a big stinky but. I think that's only because of the social media era. I think if only Five Nights at Freddy's had come out in the 90s, not a question, it would never be as big as Tetris. But nowadays, because of social media, like everyone from like maybe our generation and younger knows what Five Nights at Freddy's is. It's
I'm going to throw
massive.
it out there. I think it got big because of streaming.
100%,
think-
and that's what I
I don't-
mean. That's my point.
I don't think it's social media. I think it's the fact you had streamers and the jump scare streamer was a thing
Mhm.
in itself. Like
But people shared that a
PewDiePie,
lot.
Markiplier, those people they have talent, all that stuff, but they appeal to an audience that just likes watching things go a little bit
Yeah.
cartoony. Like
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I've met these people. I've not met PewDiePie. I have met Markiplier.
I heard
They're
he's a nice guy.
hamming it up. Like
Yeah.
they're 100% hamming up. That's fine. that's totally fine. They have to be a little more exaggerated. They basically have to be a little bit cartoony.
That's entertainment. Yeah.
Well, that's how they got successful too, right? I think Markiplier's not as hammy anymore. I think he's toned down quite a bit.
He does a bit for like, if it depends, if the game's more targeted at kids, he's more hammy. If the game's more targeted at adults, he's less hammy because he knows an adult doesn't want to watch him go woo.
But
It's not bloody.
I don't know. I kind of feel like and maybe I'm totally off the market, but I think like you're definitely right. It was 100% like streamer culture, but I think
Yeah.
streamer culture in conjunction with like Twitter and like people spreading it around like made it a lot more ubiquitous for youth and like gave it that sort of like,
it was a perfect storm.
Yeah.
It was a perfect storm that let it like become what it is. I feel that the depth of the media itself doesn't justify the amount of success it got.
100% not.
Yeah.
It is
Not
it is
comparable at all.
just it is literally just the standard trapped in a location scenario with like animatronics that has existed before.
Yeah.
That's basically chopping mall with animatronics rather than robots.
It's got a gimmick, but it's not on the same
deep.
level. But it seemed like at the time it took off in the same way that like Tetris did, like where it's just like everybody kind of knew what Five Nights at Freddy's was.
It took off. It kind of fizzled back into its like little niche. And
I mean, it fizzled back because the controversy surrounding creator that definitely didn't help things.
Yeah,
just the depth of the media itself. Like you said, it's just not. It doesn't have a sustainability.
No.
Like there's only so far that can go, and I'm surprised it's lasted as long as it has.
I mean,
the first one was a good concept. Second one kind of built on things
now.
a little bit.
There's a lot of them now.
There's a lot now. Yeah. There's like the stupid sister location spin-offs, and there was a turn-based RPG for some reason.
And like
you could tell he wanted to do more than Five Nights at Freddy's, but that was his cash cow.
I mean,
yeah, you kind of have to hold on to it.
He wanted to make different games.
I just don't think he had the depth to do so.
He didn't. No, he didn't. The whole reason that Five Nights at Freddy's even exists was because of previous failures that James Stephanie Sterling criticized.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were the reason, because it was the Chipper and Sons logging company, and they were saying how all the character models look like these like scary animatronics, and apparently Scott Cawthon took that to heart and made a horror game out of it.
But yeah, I mean, like I have a lot of problems with him personally.
Yeah, no, he ended up being kind of a
lot of. I don't want to know like any sort of thing. You have to separate a creator from their art. That is something you have to do sometimes. But I don't want to know that the creator is literally dumping money into, different things.
Republican lawmakers who are funding.
Yeah, there's a lot of do what you want to do, dude. But if you find out, don't complain.
It's like
things happen.
Yeah,
everyone's entitled to their own personal politics,
Yeah,
but when those politics start becoming actively harmful, and then like you're giving money to a person who's giving money to actively harmful politics, then it's like you can't. At that point, there's no separating the art from the artist. The art is directly funding the artist's shitty behavior.
That being said, we were talking about Fraser. Kelsey Grammer is a Republican. That's fine. But he's like, there's a difference between Republican, like he's like fiscally conservative, whatever, and hateful. Like I don't think Kelsey Grammer is hateful. He just likes the Republican Party for whatever reason.
And
he's a liberal-minded Republican. That's
because
fine.
I was about to say, like both, like the political spectrum is just that. It is a spectrum. You can be maybe a more center-leaning Republican than full-on crazy QAnon.
You can be a full-on QAnon Democrat too. So let's be clear here. Your political
there's
leanings
extremes on both sides.
Exactly. That's my point. But if you are actively doing something that's harmful to someone, that's when repercussions might happen.
Mm-hmm.
That sounded like a threat. I mean more of play your game. That's all I meant.
Your move, Scott.
I just mean people. There might be like situations where people will like, I'm not going to buy that game for whatever reason.
Yeah, no. it becomes harder to rectify. I was the same way. I used to really love Five Nights at Freddy's, even just like conceptually,
Yeah.
but now it's like it's a little bit harder for me to justify it. But now it's not even in his hands anymore anyway. Like the whole last one that came out, what was it called? The one that you were there, it was like a more open
Help wanted or
Help Wanted. Yeah, he didn't have any involvement with
I mean, to
that.
be fair, I heard that game wasn't very good at all.
I heard it wasn't very good either, but he wasn't
I've heard
involved
none
with
of
that
them are
from
very good. So,
you know what, the first one I still think has some charm. If you can get it down to a science, it becomes very like once you sort of work out how the game works, it kind of stops being scary. But like the initial play of it,
Yeah.
like the way it utilized that kind of like tension and like try to like see like balancing act of like looking at the camera, seeing where they are, closing the doors, using like managing the
Yeah.
power, like it really did it did a really good job of creating that sense of panic and tension so that like when the jump scare happened, it was actually effective.
mhm.
I think it was an interesting concept.
It was
I think it stretched too far, but this is a
100%.
segue into
Okay. Yeah, our last story then tonight is actually about a concept that, well, we'll see how it actually pans out. But there's rumors going around that Sony is working on a new handheld. Sounds great, right? Right? Except for the fact
Yay!
that it's reported to potentially be a cloud-based console.
One sec. What were you guys saying about a Sony handheld? I
Yeah.
couldn't hear you over the sound of the successful thing.
I
mean,
thought you were
honestly-
reaching for like a trumpet to do the sound. The sound. Wah, wah,
I
wah.
should have.
the PS Vita walked so the Switch could run.
Yes, and so did the
Yeah.
Wii U.
Yeah.
I think
It-
I think if the PS Vita didn't exist or the Wii U didn't exist, the Switch would never have existed.
And dominated.
You know what?
everything, yeah.
Yeah, because even the PSP, like looking back on it, like the PSP, I remember the one time I had a friend who brought a PSP to school when I was in high school,
Yeah.
and I was playing on it. I think around the time I might have been, I think I still had a DS, or
Okay.
or did the PSP come out before the DS?
The PSP came out, I believe, before
after
the-
Because I might have still been playing
it was
Game Boy
after
Advance.
the
Okay,
DS. It might have been after the DS, but before the 3DS.
okay, yeah, because
No.
no, PSP was 2005 in North America.
Yes.
And
so just
the
before the PS3 came out.
DS. So okay, no, so the DS would have been out first. That's right.
Okay.
2004. So I
close.
might have, yeah. So I might have had even still playing like the DS, like, and then one of my buddies brought his PSP to
Yeah.
school, and he had Grand Theft Auto on it, and I
Right.
played it for the first time, and I was like, holy shit, like a handheld can do this, like.
Yeah.
This is, you know, where the DS was essentially a handheld pared down N64. The PSP was like legit a handheld PS2, and I was like blown away by it. So it's like,
I mean, it really
like-
wasn't. It was like a PS 1.5 in a handheld.
it
because
was
in a small
maybe a
screen,
little bit better.
it could
Yeah,
look- It was
Yeah.
like it never.
no, you know, yeah, you're right. It was a little bit.
Like, if you play,
I'm remembering it more fondly than it was.
PS2 was actually pretty good. Like the PS2 could do
Yeah,
a lot of
no, it's true. You go back; those games hold up. There's an aesthetic that people, I don't understand, people do, indie devs. They always do retro, like 16-bit. Why doesn't no one do the PS2 era of graphics?
because it was
Oh,
kind
they'll
of just
get
like
there.
it's kind of bad, but it
It's
tries so
charming. I
good.
love it. Like GameCube era graphics. It's got a charm to it. Anyway, like those. So like as consoles, technically, those things were like way ahead of their time. Like they were awesome,
Ye-
but Sony always stumbled in the area where Nintendo always succeeded with their handhelds, which was always the games.
I don't. I think the problem with Sony was a fewfold. Yes, the game. I think the PSP could never get the first, like, beyond the first party Sony and the Japanese RPGs and JRPGs
Mhm.
things like that. It never could get a stranglehold in North America for people to want to buy it.
Yeah,
The PSP's problem was, I believe, piracy was really bad on the PSP.
yeah. Party was really bad on it.
I don't know why it was so bad, but there was something.
I-
You could put a
it-
memory stick in and just like they
Yes.
cracked into, yeah.
That's basically it. You could just crack it with a memory card.
The PS Vita was a lot harder. I know that they
Mhm.
locked that down pretty hard, but it just never got the stranglehold that the DS is. And I think it was the fact that they were too good looking to be like they were going against the PS3, and it kind of transitioned into the PS4 era. So the games never looked as good as the PS4. They looked a little bit better than the PS3 just because it was such a small screen. But you never knew what to make on it. Like it had like fighting games worked really well, side scrollers worked really well, but I didn't really ever want to play like a full AAA like experience on the Vita because it felt too cramped. It never really, it wasn't, didn't lend itself to that kind of pick up and play gameplay. Like I played the Uncharted game, and it was like, okay, nope, there's another 30 minutes of this mission. I'm just gonna figure out how to get off this bus and still play. Like it never really lent itself to those really quick pick up and play gameplay because it was trying to be that. It was trying to kind of bridge the gap between a full AAA experience and a handheld experience. And the Switch is getting better. Like they've made games that work the Switch's design really well. But the Vita was very much a handheld system. The Switch can be both. It's a full-on plug-in system, but it's also a system you can bring on as you go on the go. So it has. You want to play Zelda, you can put it in the dock and do more with it. The Vita never had that. They had the Vita TV, which was just bonkers in numerous ways. But if the Vita had a way to like plug it in and it could play it on the screen, it would have done so much better. Like if it could just be your console. But it never really was. It was always this kind of middle ground, and Sony didn't know how to market it.
And there's always the physical aspect, like the physical media aspect of it too, because one of the biggest things against both systems was the media sticks.
If Sony went on all digital system and just made it so it's like, hey, the Vita exists, you want games, the memory sticks are cheap, and you just load up games. But they didn't do that. Like, the memory sticks were like $200 for a 32 gig stick. That's bonkers.
Even initially too with the PSP or the UMDs like that, you could like they were discs essentially. You were taking a handheld console with a disc. You could like bump it and mess your game up totally. Also, I was just looking into it too. I thought so. It was price was also an issue because it was more expensive than the DS at the time too. The
PSP was like $300, I think.
Yeah. Around 200.
200. Okay.
You're right. You're right. It's $300 Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the I have one as well, and then the Vita was like $329 or something like that. It was not. They were not cheap systems.
Even if the system was relatively cheap, even if it was or was not, the media, like the physical memory card that you needed.
Yes, exactly.
Was so expensive and prone to failures. Like mine.
Oh yeah,
my Vita's
I had like
memory
3
card
break
has
on
crapped the bed entirely.
Yeah, no, I've had 2 of them, 2 or 3 of them break on me, and you're like, okay, cool. Guess I'm not doing that anymore. But they were ahead of their time. They had some great concepts, and honestly, if Sony just also the Vita's interface is crap. Like the bubbles thing they had going on. Why? Like the PS Vita came out after the PSP. The PSP had a great interface. It was very similar to the PS3's interface. And then they're like, what if we throw that all out the window and we make it look
touch screen, you see.
So we're gonna make it look like bubbles floating in water. Like, I don't know what they were doing with that. Just make it a crossbar. The cross media bar worked so well on everything else. Doing the thing they did with the Vita still boggles my mind. It was too convoluted to install games. It was it just never it felt like PS2 era like interfaces. It didn't make sense for a system that was modern, and it came out after the PS3. It made no sense to me.
Well, it was a very nice, sleek system itself and profile.
Yeah, no, it's a solid system. I reviewed Tales of Arise Tales of Cold Steel or something on it. Trials of Cold Steel.
Yeah.
On the Office Vita, and I loved having it at the time. I was like, wow, this is actually a really cool system.
It's great.
If I had ever gotten around to it, but it was the same thing at that time. There was no competing with Nintendo in the handheld space.
It never really has been either. That's the thing.
I think at the Vita, if they made it they made a new revision of it and had some kind of way to connect it to your TV, as they kept suggesting there's going to be ways to do that, it would have been much more interesting and more exciting for people.
And
And,
that's
like,
kind of
even in
why.
today's landscape too. I mean, so rumors have been going around for a little bit. Rumors are what they are.
Yeah.
When I first heard, I was like, okay, well, PlayStation just launched the PSVR
Yeah.
2, and like that's kind of like a huge separate investment in that
And
ecosystem. Might
isn't
not be
doing
something
great.
that they're actually looking into. But then Jeff Grubb actually was the one that kind of suggested it would be, or suggest that he had heard it was a cloud-based system, and that is
Yeah.
infinitely less interesting to me in this economy or in this ecosystem where we have remote play.
Mhm.
You can pick up your phone, get the PS5 remote app, and play your PS5 on your phone.
It
Like,
literally
that's the
sounds like a Logitech G Cloud from Sony,
thing.
but focused only on doing PS5 games and PS Now
Yeah.
games. That's all it does. I don't know what world that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why anyone would buy that. Like, why would you say, you know what I really
No.
want? A worse way to play my games.
Yeah.
I want to play them
Yeah.
as bad as possible. How can I do
there is
that?
a world for that.
The power
there
of
is a world for that, but it's
PS5, except
possible.
not.
That world is called 2017 before Stadia was announced.
Yeah.
Stadia came out
that
and flopped.
magical wonderland.
Now
time.
Sony of all people is like, hey, maybe I should.
I mean,
flop
Sony
too.
has a streaming service. PlayStation Now,
Yeah.
which is part of PlayStation Plus Ultra, whatever the hell it's called, is good. It works really well. You know what I don't need? A console that only does that.
Yeah.
And to me, I honestly, I feel like these are just like those, in the same way that you always get those like, oh, the Switch Pro is coming out tomorrow, like rumors. It just feels like one of those things where like someone might have heard something in a business meeting and it was a game of telephone, because it really doesn't, like exactly like you said, Brendan, it just doesn't make any sense for Sony coming off the back of the PS5, like Chris said, and the PSVR 2 that they just put out. They put out like arguably like not arguably, they put out like a really competent system. They are just getting like to a place now where they're actually like they have stock and people can actually go out and get these things.
I'm going to throw it out there. I know you have a point, but I want to get back to that.
No.
Sony is finally on top again. And if the numbers are believed, they are selling 2-1 against the Series X.
100%. Like,
I mean, people are saying the Series X has made maybe 20 million sold. Sony's sitting at almost 35, 40 million sold currently of the PS5. It is one of the fastest selling consoles they've ever done. They cannot keep it on shelves. Even now,
it's desirable as hell.
Yeah, exactly.
and that's what I mean. Like, they got this great system out there. They got like as all really realistically all Sony needs now is to start putting out some really good first party titles. Like because that was the only thing that like now like having got my hands on a PS5 where I was kind of like, this is good, but there's that like little part in the back of my mind that's got that buyer's remorse. I was just like, I'm like, there really isn't anything on here that I wasn't already playing on PS4. Like, but it's still like it comparatively, it is night and day difference. And like even some of the games too, I didn't realize I re-downloaded Sekiro. Yeah. The thing runs at 60 frames on the fucking PS5. I was like, oh, this is how it was meant to be played.
That being said, I'm going to say it right now. With the success of the Steam Deck, I could see a market for, like, basically they take the PS4, put it in a handheld.
Yeah.
There's a market for that. Basically, it's still PC based. It has basically what the hardware of the PS4 is, with a little screen, compete against the Switch, be able to plug it in. It is a stopgap between people buying the PS5. It could still do streaming. It could still work with you. They talk to each other. It is part of that ecosystem. It makes sense. Something that is Android based, that does cloud stuff, makes no sense.
That's the way,
or make it almost more like a PS4 Pro, or even like the Series S for the PS5, but it's handheld.
Yeah, exactly. That I could see. Like, you're like, oh, it's like $100 less than the PS5 or $200, whatever you want to do. Like similar pricing to the Steam Deck. It plays most of the games you already enjoy. It could share your library. It's on the go. Boom. That's a console. That makes sense. That's something you could sell. Asus is just announcing a portable gaming system that's like that. Sony has the hardware exists. It could be shrunk down to the size of a Switch. That would make sense to me. They have the
Because
hardware prowess to do that. That is something that makes sense.
like in my mind, like this is where like Sony excels the most at making like good dedicated consoles. Like
Yes.
as good as the Steam Deck is, like you're not going to hear me saying that the
Yeah.
Switch is better. Like this the Steam Deck doesn't occupy space in my mind like the Switch does, just because the
Yeah.
Switch is a Nintendo thing and it has Nintendo's library and it
Yeah.
has like their design team when it comes to making those kinds of games, right? So to create a handheld that's going to act as like a competitor to the Switch or a competitor to Nintendo in the handheld realm in any capacity is just, it's foolish. Focus on doing what you can, make a good system, because like at the end of the day, like the Switch is great, but like I think I was, like I said a couple weeks ago, like I was in Brazil with nothing but my Switch for 4 months. By the end, I was tired of it. I wanted to play something else, and now playing like the PS5, like it's refreshing to be playing games that aren't the Switch, because you start to see the limitations of the Switch when it's the only thing you have.
Oh, I 100% agree. And that's why I say if Sony was smart and they really want to do a handheld, do a stopgap system, do a
Mhm.
system that is basically, you're not going to put a PS5 in a handheld. It's just not going to work. But they don't need to. The
I was
system
gonna say
exists.
in that realm though, if it exists as a sort of a stopgap, is it just something that's like, okay, here's a little handheld PS4 that you could use as your PS4, like
No,
to access
no,
the game?
no,
Because then that's my same argument. It's like, if you just get a PS5, because if you're gonna get something that's handheld, Sony doesn't really excel at making good handheld games
but
with their properties.
no.
That's where
I'm going to argue.
Nintendo shines.
I'm going to argue the fact that if you bought, okay, let's say you had a system that it's like Chris said, Xbox One S, but Sony. So a PS5, a PS4 Pro. It has that entire library of games. You're talking hundreds of games. You
Mhm.
buy a game on PS5, it's still usually, there's a few games that are only PS5, but a lot have that. They work on both things, and it would be a thing like, oh, I'm playing Diablo 4, jumping onto my handheld, get home, put in my main system, keep going.
Yeah.
Also, it works as a thing to kind of stop. I'm not saying this isn't something they're doing. If what we're doing
we're
is
just
completely different.
we're fantasizing. No,
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
I get you, I get you
There's
there.
times when I'm traveling, I can't bring my PS5, but I have the system. It
Yeah.
plays most of the same games. Pop it in. They're reduced at 30 frames a second, so you're not getting the top graphics, but it works. It's the size of a Steam Deck, and it lets you play your games on the go. The
I mean,
touchscreen acts as like,
I would I would have totally loved that. I was traveling last week. I mean,
yeah,
I have my Switch with me, but the stuff that I've been playing, I want to take on the go with me.
yeah. If it like the cloud
Yeah.
saves, all that stuff, it just works.
Yeah.
Load on your games. It might be able, like it has a 256, 500, 512 gig thing in there. It's enough to load some games on there, quickly play. Good for planes, good for traveling. That makes sense. A weird thing that works in the cloud that you have to be connected to the internet all the time. It's basically an Android system with a skin on it. That's dumb. It makes
There's
no
plenty
sense.
of
Yeah,
precedent
no.
out there for
Yeah.
why they should not be doing that, if that is the case. And
Yeah.
And as like I said, especially something that's not going to act as a standalone thing, because like if Sony's going to have like the kind of like they used to, like a mobile or like a handheld division,
Yeah.
like I said, compared to Nintendo, they're not going to succeed at
No.
all. Like, because like
That
like
that
I
being
said, the
said,
Switch is not a capable system, but you can access most of the better indies on there, and then you have
yeah.
like your Nintendo games. It's that good like little balance.
But I think Sony has some of the best hardware people in the business. They can
Oh yeah,
make things
absolutely.
like they make things look ridiculously good for no reason. Like they're
Yeah.
weird. Like, why is this over designed? I don't know, but it looks great. They did a good job doing this, but they are able to make some really impressive hardware, and with the way things have advanced to the point they have, there makes a lot of sense to do something in the handheld space that is still compatible with the things they already do. That still works with the PS5's hardware, still works with the PS4
Yeah.
stuff. That makes
I agree.
sense. Sony making an entire new console that is a fully new platform they have to make an entire slate of games for. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
They're not gonna spread
No.
themselves thin. Find a way to share that library. It makes sense. Doing it as a like a cloud thing is just stupid.
Yeah. I mean, but let's be honest. Taking a look at the PSP and the Vita, it wouldn't be a Sony handled if they didn't hamstring themselves somehow. So I mean, it's on brand for Sony handled.
But I mean, like, honestly, the Steam Deck is similar hardware to what a PS4 is. Maybe a bit better. It is that. Think about it. If you look at the specs, it's very similar to how a PS4 or Xbox One S is built. It's just in a handheld form. It's right there. Like literally, like, hey, we have these chips anyways. What if we did something with them?
Hey, we've been making new PS4s for some reason. What if we just
What-
made them handheld instead?
Yeah.
Literally, you can
Shrunk it
still buy a
down.
new PS4.
Yeah.
Like the new
Yeah,
Call
they
of
still-
Duty
they're-
PS4 exists. Yeah.
They haven't phased it out
exists
yet,
on
right?
store shelves everywhere because no one's buying it.
Yeah.
No one asked for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, they couldn't get enough PS5s. Like, what if we did something?
I mean, we tried.
Yeah.
We tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas.
Yeah. But the answer is, if Sony went forward with this, I don't know who's running the show there. Like, is everyone that would possibly make decisions worried about what Microsoft's going to do and just fighting in a courtroom and not worried about what makes sense as a console? I hope this is a rumor that is literally just been like Sony they tried making some cloud thing and they're like, this is stupid, and someone saw like, wow, they're making this thing, and that's where it came from. I hope it isn't something that's in the pipeline.
This is the thing with rumors, right? Like, I can believe that, at any point they were talking about doing this.
Yeah, I believe. I
maybe ran some
100%.
tests internally, and it takes a while for that stuff to get outside, or someone's working with outdated knowledge.
I 100% believe they saw they were talking with the Logitech G Cloud coming like, hey, we could do that. Yeah, we could probably do that. And then that came out. They're like, oh, let's not do that. That seems like a bad idea. Let's not do that.
Yeah, no.
Or like the classic Switch Pro rumors.
Well, the thing is, from what I understood of the
PS5
Switch
Pro.
Pro rumor, that it did exist.
Yeah.
It's just it would have like there was a lot of logistics involved, and the Switch is still selling fine, so it made no sense to do a Switch Pro that could do a full new set of games because then you have that cross-platform thing, and Nintendo just didn't want to do that. That makes sense. But there was discussion. They had plans. It was a thing. It's just Nintendo kiboshed that.
They prototypes at some point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They just said no. If we do that, it's going to be a new 3DS situation where you're going to have a few games that use it, and the rest are just going to be like, nope. It has extra hardware that no one's going to use.
Shoot themselves in the foot all over again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're cooking up all kinds of things, and we won't know if they're actually going to see the light of day until.
Cook up some games, damn it.
If you look at all this, if you look at like there's all these there's so many prototypes, there's so much weird development stuff coming out of Sony. Sony prototypes the most stupid things. Most of them never come close to market.
Today they were prototyping or filing a patent for a controller that could like make you feel hot or cold.
Yeah,
so, like,
sure.
Your
Why
controller
not?
would feel cold. I mean, sure. Why not? Why not do smell-o-vision? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not blast some flavors into your mouth or something?
So I mean,
the character's eating meat in a game. And now
you know what? That's actually a cool idea. Now I think about it. I would love that if you're like playing, you're in like an ice level and your controller gets all like cold.
I mean, sure.
Why not?
I was picturing
extra haptic feedback.
Yeah, supreme haptic, not 4D haptic. I was actually thinking of Breath of the Wild when I was saying that thing about the taste, because I was trying to imagine what Link's horrible, mangled cooking failure.
Like, I don't want that.
That's 6D gaming right there, baby.
But the answer is like, I did up a story for this thing. And I was reading all the rumors. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, I hope this isn't a real thing. Like, phones exist. We all have them. And if you don't have a phone, you're probably not going to buy a $300 system just to do the thing a phone would do.
Isn't some of the like the PS like Plus stuff, like the one where you can get the PlayStation 2 games, isn't that all cloud based already? Because I've seen
it's cloud based, but you can just get it on your phone. You can get it on
But
like
what my point is that I was watching a let's play, and they actually got it on film where they were playing Sly Cooper, and the
Yeah.
game actually kicked them out because of unstable internet. So
Yeah.
the internet infrastructure in the States is super bad to the point where you can capture on a let's play that you're doing for a living, your PS5 kicking you out of the cloud-based platform
I
that's
mean, and
already existing.
the answer is, no matter how good a thing is like that, I would not rely on it as the only way to play.
No,
Like
Yeah.
no.
Xbox xCloud, I've tried xCloud. It sometimes works really well. And then other times it's like, oh, this looks really broken. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm playing this game, I guess. It kind of works. I don't want to exist with a system that can only do that. And I do worry if that is what Sony thinks is what we should
Yeah,
do.
I
don't
I
know
can't
who's-
imagine. It
Time will-
doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't seem logistically sound. But like you were about to say,
Yeah.
Chris, time will tell.
Time will tell. I mean,
Yeah, I
they've had
mean,
such
like,
an
we'll
ass
see.
whooping in this department before. I didn't think we'd even hear rumors about this. So
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, if they're willing to experiment in this department, I'm curious. Like I still have my handhelds. I'm game. if they
I
wanna try
still
this again, but
I
please
still
don't
have like
do that.
three. I still have like three Vitas. I have like two PSPs. I have the
That's all you
white
need, baby.
Vader PSP.
The which one?
Ooh,
The white Vader PSP.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a collector's item there.
Yeah,
That's
I
it,
have
that's it,
I have a
basic.
PS Vita TV. So I'm in this world of stupid. The Vita TV was one of those
stupidity.
systems. The Vita TV I loved because it came here, and it was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like I think it was $99.99 or like $129.99, and it dropped to $30 in like 3 months. And
There
it's
was a
like,
point where they were down to $10,
oh
and
god,
then they sold out. Like all the copies sold out at, like across game stores across the province.
Yeah.
And then they shot up to like 200.
yep.
Like
I
it
think they're now
was,
selling for like 350 or something like that.
oh, probably easily, yeah. Because I think it's probably something that's easily cracked or something like that.
I've heard it's pretty easily clacked, but also the fact that like there's a finite number of them. There will
Yeah,
only
exactly,
ever
that
be a
itself.
finite. There was on store shelves for such a short time that if you happen to have one, they have value. Same with like the Game Boy Micro, that was on
Mm.
store shelves for such a short amount of time that if you happen to have one that still works properly, they have value because they didn't make very many because it was kind
the
of
thing.
stupid and hard to use.
That's the thing, right? Because the Game Gears, they don't work well anymore because they were badly made
Yeah.
to start with. So
Yeah.
if they exist, yeah, you're probably getting a dud. So
Exactly. So I think I honestly hope Sony does something in the handheld space again. I really do. But I do question if this is what they're thinking makes sense. I'm going to speak right to Sony right now. Maybe go back to the drawing board. This is not a good idea. You will literally be the joke of most of the gaming industry.
you're doing well right now. But you don't need to take
Yeah,
this
like,
big a hit.
You're not. It's going to look bad for you, and there's very little reason to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you already have
focus
a phone app.
focus on PS5 exclusives. That's all what we need right now.
I mean, honestly,
At least there are some, but yeah, that's.
I think
Start shifting.
if Sony just works on deals that make sure that they get the good games, if they work on finding ways to push that console to get it into gamers' hands, and to put money behind unique ideas, I think that's what really is going to make
Yeah.
the system sell.
100%.
But I think
Better
that's
than
going to
Sony's
do it
side.
for us this week, though. So if you'd like to read more on these topics and more, you can find full coverage at cgmagonline.com. Be sure to follow CG Magazine on all the socials. Just search for CG Mag. You'll find us. And if you have any questions or comments, please send them to podcast@cgmagonline.com. Jordan, where can people find you?
Sometimes on Instagram, sometimes on TikTok at Ninja X Jordan, and sometimes on YouTube at Ninja Jordan Reviews.
Oh, me, right? I
Yeah.
forgot that was next.
Seamless transitions.
Yeah, we're killing it today. It's BFry26 on all the socials, and follow me. I
That's it.
sometimes tweet. I sometimes don't. But you can go to all my writing and stuff at cgmagonline.com.
Beautiful.
I
Plus,
no, that was real bad.
in your
real-
defense, usually Dana's there to buffer, so he lists your
Yeah.
tweet for a good reason. And you can find me on Twitter at Hoogafy. Again, Twitter is cesspool these days, but yeah, still there sometimes. And you, of course, find our writings at
the Doge dog
cgmegaonline.com.
going on right now. Oof.
Yeah, I hate it. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Stay radical, gamers.
I'm losing
Need
that
a
end.
punchline.
I'm